So let's just dive right into a really big, maybe even uncomfortable question, one that recent scandals have pushed right into the spotlight. Does having extreme wealth actually have the power to corrupt people? To make them evil? And right away, the source for this explainer makes a bold claim. The argument is that if we only focus on one monstrous person, we're totally missing the bigger picture. This isn't just about one man's crimes. It's about the entire environment that lets people like him thrive. You see, the idea here is that while we get caught up in all the shocking details, the private islands, the famous names, we're completely ignoring this massive, systemic elephant just sitting there in the middle of the room. So this really gets to the heart of it, right? Was this guy just a one-off, a complete aberration? Or, and this is the scary part, is he something that a system like ours was bound to create? Is he a predictable, even inevitable result of letting wealth and power get so concentrated? Okay, so to even begin to answer that, we've got to look at the science. The research takes us right inside the human brain to see what actually happens on a neurological level when a person gets an immense amount of power. And it all comes down to this thing called empathy. And look, it's not just about being a nice person. It's a real hardwired process in your brain. When you see someone hurting, your brain's mirror neurons fire up, and you literally feel a version of what they're feeling. It's fundamental to how we connect with each other. This is where it gets wild. A study out of McMaster University found that when you make people feel powerful, their mirroring function, that core empathy circuit we just talked about, it literally gets turned down. It's inhibited. Power seems to physically shut down the part of your brain that connects you to other people. Neurologists, they have a word for that. They call it damage. And this isn't just something they found in a lab. Researchers at UC Berkeley saw this empathy gap out in the real world. They found that wealthier people were more likely to be selfish in traffic, and, get this, I am not making this up, they were more likely to take candy from a jar that was clearly marked as being for children. It sounds small, but it points to this huge, profound disconnect. Okay, so your brain's empathy center might be on the fritz, but how do people justify this kind of behavior to themselves? And, maybe more importantly, what happens when they almost never face any consequences for it? You've probably heard this famous line. It perfectly sums up this idea that researchers call moral licensing. The studies found that wealthier folks were way more likely to believe that greed isn't just okay, it's actually good, that it's a virtue that pushes society forward. And that way of thinking leads to this really powerful self-justification. The thinking goes like this. The world is fair, it's a meritocracy. I'm on top, so I must have earned it, which means I'm a better, more worthy person. And if you believe that, well then pretty much anything you do feels acceptable, right? So you've got this belief system, and it's operating in a world where, frankly, the rules just don't seem to apply. Researchers call this structural impunity, and you see it everywhere. From that insane plea deal Epstein first got, to the fact that not a single major banker went to jail after the 2008 crisis, the message is loud and clear. If you're rich enough, the law can feel more like a suggestion. But here's where the story gets even bigger. And this is the part we often miss. The problem isn't just that the system creates abusers. The very same system also creates the victims. It's two sides of the exact same coin. I mean, just look at this number. The sheer scale of this is hard to wrap your head around. When you have this much wealth piling up in just a few hands, it doesn't just make a few people powerful. It has a massive, devastating impact on pretty much everyone else. So let's put it together. On one side of the equation, you have the abusers. And these aren't just bad apples. They are people who the system itself has created. People whose brains, as the science suggests, have been literally rewired by all that power, making it harder for them to feel that basic human connection. And then, on the other side of that same equation, the system is busy creating a huge pool of people who are vulnerable, who are desperate because of their economic situation. Think about it. When you're just trying to survive, trying to pay rent, you become an easy target. The system basically builds the predator and serves up the prey. So, if the system itself is the problem, what do? The whole argument here is that you don't just go hunting for individual monsters. You have to shut down the factory that's making them in the first place. All right, so let's recap the chain of events here. You've got power that shuts down empathy. You've got an ideology that says greed is good, you've got a system with no real consequences, and you've got massive inequality that creates a steady stream of victims. You see, this isn't some random tragedy. It's a predictable, almost inevitable result. And that's the core idea, right? We can spend all our time and energy chasing down these individual villains, playing a game of whack-a-mole, but another one will just pop up until we finally deal with the economic conditions that produce them with such terrifying predictability. So the proposed solution is a total shift in how we think about this. Step 1, stop focusing on hunting the monsters one by one. And step 2, go after the root cause. Fix the obscene wealth gap, maybe through something like significant taxation, because that's what creates both the abuser's broken mindset and the victim's vulnerability. And that really leaves us with one last really challenging question to think about. When we see these horrible things happen, our gut reaction is to find the bad guy and punish him. But what if that's not enough? What if the only real way to stop the next monster is to turn off the machine that built this one?